This episode is brought to you by America's Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now tuned in to the Archer.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Arcast. My name is Buddha, and today we have the pleasure of bringing you a story from a good friend of mine. I've seen him over the years, and watching him in the front lobby when I went to bring him back to the studio, seeing the glow, hearing him talk to his old therapist and what he's doing now, man, it just brings a joy to my heart, and I'm so glad that he's here. I'm so glad that he's healthy. He's in the studio with me today, and he's got a huge smile on his face. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to my homeboy, Rudy. Yeah. What up, dog? How are you?
I'm doing good.
I want to thank you for coming through, bro. I know we barely chopped it up, like maybe, I think it was like last week or something, and you came in pretty quick. You were like, yo, whenever we're available, let's get in. I want to speak my testimony.
Yeah, definitely. I've been wanting to do this since I found out you're doing this.
That's super cool. You're a musician as well, right?
A little bit.
Yeah,
I play a little bit guitar, trying to get into it, trying to learn it, but...
Yeah. I think that was when we initially first had that conversation, was about that, because you played guitar and stuff like that.
I remember that and seeing the drums over here and hearing that you used to do that program.
Yeah, man. That's cool, though, bro. That's cool, and it's so good to have you in here. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's such an amazing part, and I just want to thank you for coming, because, today is, the listeners won't know this, but today is my Monday, here. And to be able to start off the week by having somebody in here that has such an amazing testimony and the strength and everything just makes me feel good, bro. It makes my heart happy, and I'm just grateful that we're here, dog. So thank you again for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go back, man. I want to know, about you, from where you're from to where you're at now. Were you born here in Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah, I was born and raised Tucson, Arizona, March 26, 1999.
1999.
Made the cut, barely, but I made it.
All right, that's what's up. You said you were raised here in Tucson. Did you have any siblings growing up?
Yeah, so I was born actually addicted to crack and opiates or heroin, withdrawing for the first few months of my life, I guess.
Man.
I was taken away immediately, put into a foster home, and at one, I got adopted by my amazing parents, amazing family. Couldn't have asked for a better situation. It's very fortunate to how I got adopted. So I grew up with, I got my mom, my dad, 2 older brothers, and a sister, and it was a good family growing up. My dad was a sheriff, and it was definitely always had some pressure on me with that, but
yeah,
it was a strict household, that's for sure.
So they brought you in, it's just like your real family, man. So you were at 1 year old when this happened?
Yeah, so
okay, so
that's all I know, right?
That's all you know. That's cool, though. Do you have any connection to your biological family? Have you ever met them before?
So yeah, that's just recently, actually. It was about 8 months ago. I happened to move on the west side for about a month, and near the end of that, it was such a God shot, such a random thing that how it happened. But I always knew my mom's name. So I looked her up on Facebook, saw pictures of somebody who I think might be her, might not be her. I wasn't too sure, but I had the name right. And I was walking through this park one day, and I saw this lady, asked for a lighter. It was in my addiction still a bit, and I was looking at her, and I was like, "You look really familiar," or "You look familiar."
Wow.
And I remember seeing the pictures on Facebook, this might be this girl. And it was crazy. We both left, and we both came back at the same time to the park, and I went up and asked them for some shit because they were doing their stuff, and asked if they had any more. And then I asked her "Hey, is your name Sonia?" And she was like, "Yeah, why?" I was like, "Did you have a kid when we were 13?" She was like, "Yeah, are you him?" And I was like, "March 26, 99. And then she just started crying and gave me a hug, and
oh my God,
that's basically how I met my mom.
Yeah, and it was just like a divine intervention. You were just there.
Yeah, just happened to be there, and
wow,
on that side of town where they live.
Wow. And growing up, I'm always curious when I've heard stories about people that have been adopted into families and things. Did that ever play a part in your addiction? Like that feeling, or was the love so good with your family that you didn't feel that kind of void? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking about this to somebody recently, like this past week, and I think the family I was adopted into was a great family, but I was definitely the black sheep of the family. I was the only one who ever got in trouble at school, only one who ever touched drugs, only one been in jail. Just the only one who's fucked up in their life so much, and I definitely felt that seeing my siblings do so much better and not mess up the way I was messing up. And, and then being different too, like looking different, just not being around people who look like me and seeing people with their biological families growing up and they always have such a strong connection. I was always wondering, like deep down, like if I meet my family, will that be different? Will I feel this connection that I've never felt because I see it in other people?
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that when I met my mom. It was definitely because I was in my addiction too. I think that played a part in it, so I didn't feel that connection as much. And
yeah,
it was more upsetting to see her still doing what she was doing when she was 13.
Yeah,
but I think it definitely did play a part in my addiction a bit. Just that longing for knowing where I come from.
Yeah,
where I really come from.
And it didn't matter, even if there was like a huge amount of love, which it seems like it was in your family, growing up with your adopted parents, like there's still that void, like you said, because it's almost like I relate to you in that sense, because it's like I've travieso growing up, completely me, you know what I mean, travieso, and my pops was out doing his thing, but it is that thing of like, man, you can't bounce it off of, you know what I'm saying? It's like, where do I get this from? Is this something that came from them? Is it something, why does this happen to me? It's like an internal turmoil almost. You know what I'm saying? So you grew up, how many siblings did you say that you had in the house with your adopted family?
Yeah, I got 2 older brothers and a older sister. One of them, my second oldest, has autism, so it's always a different situation with him. I think that kind of played a part in like the household dynamic where he would get special treatment, it felt like, which of course, like I don't blame them, but I'd fuck up and he'd do something similar and, I get
reprimanded.
Yeah, I get reprimanded for it pretty heavily.
Yeah. And how did that affect, like with your school, when you were in school? Were you a good student at school?
I did decent. I always found school kind of just boring, easy, and I kind of wish I paid more attention now because I have a yearning for knowledge, and I love to learn stuff and just study different things, philosophies, and learn about history. But during school, I was just so bored, and I definitely have come to realize that I have a big issue with getting attention, and I'm sure that has to do with just like at the household, getting a certain type of attention, but not the attention that a kid needs, I think.
Yeah.
And so I learned at a pretty young age, every action has a reaction. Good or bad, in my mind, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning something earlier about like, where do I get this from? Is it from them or is it from me? That's something that comes up in my addiction even. Like now I've come to terms that I was born with this, and it's something that I couldn't really have escaped too easily.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I grew up and like always gravitating towards trouble, my dad being a sheriff, I never. That's not what I was taught. I was taught the opposite of what I gravitated towards, and I think that's definitely genetics.
Isn't it? It's weird too, because like, hearing your story, I think it's genetics. We've had a lot of talks on here about like generational curses, that people from generations, like literally generations that go from, the grandfather to the father to the son, you know what I mean? And that makes a lot of sense, saying those types of things, but also, even just barely dabbling into the beginning of your story, like the coincidences, which I don't consider anything a coincidence anymore now that I have kids and I feel like the world is an amazing spot. It's an amazing place where things just kind of happen as they should. And
Definitely.
it's like the irony of like your dad being the sheriff and then here you are, little travieso, you know what I mean? And just, it's interesting. And then hearing how you connected with your mom on just a whim. Could have been anyone. There's millions of people in Tucson alone, but to be at that one place at that one time and to run into them, like, it's just very interesting, man. So going a little bit deeper, with the whole school thing and stuff like that, do you remember, how old were you when you first started dabbling in substances? Were you young?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would have been younger if I didn't get adopted by who I did.
Yeah.
But I remember it was like my 8th grade year, middle school. I remember being around substances, and used to be so against it. Like, oh, I'm never gonna do that stuff. Never gonna touch that. Like, this shit's terrifying to me. I took a sip of vodka once in 8th grade, and like, I thought my buddy gave me some rubbing alcohol. I didn't even know. I thought it was rubbing alcohol. I was like, why would you do that to me? And then that summer, right after 8th grade, before freshman year of high school, me and my buddies from the skate park, that was the first time I smoked weed. We spent the night at their house, and we stole their mom's vape pen, or like their like her weed pen, and we just smoked both pens all night and smoked them out, and
dang,
it was a great feeling, and fell in love right away. I was like, this is fucking awesome. I remember looking up at the fan, seeing it spin, and for some reason that was the funniest thing ever to me, and just couldn't stop laughing for like 30 minutes watching the fan spin.
It's crazy to me to hear that like your first experience with pot was with a vape pen. Like that shit didn't come out till I was like already a grown ass man with kids. I'm like, damn, how old are you, dog? I keep forgetting. That's so funny. It was like with us, we had to like freaking make sure the car, like we had to clean the car and everything. There was like so many different issues, like worried about getting caught up, man. With the vape pen, that ain't shit. It's crazy.
Well, it was like it had actual flour in it. I can't think of the name right now, but it would like heat it up so much to where it was just burning THC up the flour.
Yeah.
Like decarbolize the flour.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man. Well, damn. Okay, so you were in 8th grade, you said, when you did that for the first time. I'm curious, growing up the way that you did, especially with your father being a police officer, were you aware of how you were adopted? Like, did you know about the addiction as a baby and things like that?
So, no, not really. Not that I remember too much. I know that there was always like little warnings and stuff that they'd tell me, like, don't do drugs, of course.
Yeah.
They never went too in depth into it until that freshman year. I got real into smoking pot, and I got caught at school like 2 months in. I had some weed on me, and one of the teachers, I guess, could smell it, and they searched me. They found it and thought I was real slick, hiding it in my deodorant bottle, like pulling out the bottom. That was the first place they checked. They got the deodorant and like pulled it out. I was like, what the hell? And yeah, so I got paper arrested, and I remember them sitting me down and telling me like, hey, like, you were adopted because you were born addicted to drugs. Like, you can't start fucking with drugs because it's really dangerous for you. And I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. I was like, that's not me. I'm not gonna get addicted. I'm smart enough.
Yeah.
And like, my parents will still tell me to this day, like, remember you used to always say like, it's not gonna be you. You're smart enough. You're too smart to get addicted, and it'll be all right. And definitely rubbed that in my face a bit. But yeah, I didn't realize the severity of it until just recently, this year, I'd say, like,
yeah, how
serious, like, me being born into that does affect me today.
And it also brings up the question, at least to me as a father, because, having 2 babies, I worry about them, because addiction runs in my family, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it brings that question as a father for any of the listeners out there that are, parents. At what age do you open up to them about real life subjects with certain things? Because it's like, they probably didn't inform you of those things, for one, because of, maybe hurting your feelings or not wanting you to think a certain thing or whatever the issue may be, but I think as parents, we tend to kind of try and keep certain things from our kids, when now, because the world is getting so bad, I wonder like if it's even better to be open and honest to our kids, because they're living in a world where you go on social media, ain't nobody you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's everywhere on social media.
Yeah. So it makes me think about that, like if we should be a little bit more open with the kids. But continuing on, so you were a freshman at this time, already in high school, starting to rebel, using, you know what I mean? Was there ever any fear of getting into anything harder, any other substances, or was it just was it fueled by the rebellion and all of those other things to just keep using other substances?
I think there was fear, but I remember, I don't recall exactly. I think it was freshman year still. Like, I was on paper arrest and couldn't smoke weed, of course. I remember it was crazy. My dad, because he worked for the police department or the sheriff's department, they had this whole book on substances, and he had me sit down. Like, one of my punishments, he had me sit down and read about the effects of marijuana on the brain.
Yeah.
And I thought it was all bullshit, like 100% bullshit. Like, oh, it's going to give me cancer or going to kill brain cells. And I was like, this is government stuff. So that made me rebel even more, because of my beliefs then with it. I was like, oh, I know what weed is.
Yeah.
Like, and the government's lying to me. So I started getting more of that form of like screw the man kind of. And
Yeah, I feel you.
and and then I started. I think it was when I got that paper arrest. I started dabbling with like stupid shit. Like I have ADHD, so I had old Adderall meds I stopped taking, and I remember breaking those up. I found out the lock to my parents' like medicine box, the code, and would go in there when they were gone, break up the beads, and start snorting them. Or I'd pop like 5 of my pills. I remember getting that effect, and it wasn't comfortable, but I was just curious. I was very curious. I think that was the biggest thing, just curiosity. Like the effects weren't too fun, but just I guess they were. I enjoyed it enough where I kept doing it, but I was very curious. And I remember going on websites like Arrowit or drugs.com or Shroomery and reading about different things I could take at home that I might have at home that'll give me effects different than what I'm feeling now. And I remember messing with Benadryl pretty heavily. I would take Benadryl to school, pop like 15 or 25 during class, and just try to hallucinate at school. And
wow. Yeah, no, I mean, and it brings up another question too, as a father of like, with my daughter, my son too, I don't mean to pick on my baby girl. I love her so much, but I always think about like where she, she struggles with her school a lot more than my son does. So it's like brings in the question of like medications, because I have addiction in my family. Should I resort to, putting them on medications or whatever? And I think my view on that has changed, because when we first started the podcast, I thought, man, like if we can't get this under control, we got ADHD meds, because Adderall worked for me. It did, but I also got addicted to them in the sense of like I didn't eat. So I lost all this weight. I started feeling good, you know what I mean? But I think now too, it's like one of those things like when my wife and I, not to get too off subject here, we've kind of implemented a plan where it's like, all right, we're going to try, and if she can't do homework this night, I'm going to try, even though it's harder for me because I had harder times in school. It's like, I'm going to try and sit with her and really try and work. Because I think with kids, man, you really got to try and make sure that you have exhausted all avenues before medication's ever an option, especially in a family of addiction.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Like, I wish they would have tried different ways with me, because I used to always blame them for my problems. Like, oh, you guys put me on Adderall since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, and it definitely, I did get those feelings. Like, I stopped eating as well and got all skinny.
Yeah.
And I think that having that addiction in my brain already and taking this legal meth, basically, that it definitely probably did trigger something a little bit. And so when I started using other substances, that the door was already wide open. Yeah. And I agree. I think taking all avenues to try to deal with it, because brains just move a little bit more. Doesn't mean like you need medication for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't expect, the education system to fit like a glove for every single child.
Yeah.
Especially now. Matter of fact, I was just listening to this pastor talk on the way to work today, and he was saying, he's like, nowadays in this world, we are in the most anxious the world has been ever, right? People are more depressed than they've ever been ever. He's like, and at the same time, we are prescribing more anxiety and depression meds than we ever had. He's like, so maybe the pill is not the option. If you take a pill to stop the anxiety, shouldn't it go away? Then why are they prescribing so much? And why is it, as a world right now, are we so anxious and so depressed? Kind of makes you think, bro.
Yeah, I definitely have some crazy thoughts on that, or some deep thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time just thinking about that stuff, and
it's nuts, man. It really is. So did you end up graduating from high school?
Yeah, so I graduated high school, but between those years before graduating, I really started dabbling in stuff. Like my junior year, sophomore year, I started messing with Xanax a bit and smoking weed every day, ditching class to smoke. Started drinking a little bit more at school. I pretty much did everything at school because I knew being at home, I was too scared to be at home and be high. But I had 8 hours at school every day. I could
be gone,
get fucked up, and then by the end of the day, I'm sober enough to go home. So my junior year, I think was the first time I tried heroin. I had a buddy who would bring heroin to school. I got real into coke that year too. So we do like speedballs in the bathroom. I don't even remember the effects of feeling the heroin, but I only tried it like 3 or 4 times then. And maybe I was just so high on the coke that I didn't feel the heroin or something.
Yeah.
But it didn't really touch that stuff anymore. I already crossed that line. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm never going to cross this line. But for some reason, that's that curiosity, like trying everything at home, like the Benadryls, the pills. I remember my grandma passed away. She had her old medication. I still feel horrible about this, but I went and took her like painkillers and took all of those, and that was a fun time for the 3 days while that rest of that script lasted.
Yeah.
But then when it was gone, I didn't go looking for more at that time.
Yeah. And you know what, too? I think one of the, the biggest lies of whatever the evil energy is in this world, I think one of the biggest lies that it tells us is that, you're alone in that. Like you said, you feel bad for that. Bro, there's at least 3 other episodes of the podcast that we've had where people have done the exact same thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy because you just don't see it, and I think for people that aren't in addiction, you said that you started with the weed. I think it's a slow decline, right? Because at first it's fun. Everything's fun. Kicking it with your homies, females around, whatever it may be. And then you slowly progress. Little do you know on the inside that you're covering up some sort of a pain. And correct me if I'm wrong, you know what I'm saying? But you're covering up some sort of a pain, and it just progresses little by little. The rebelliousness, I think you kind of feel, like you said, if you felt the way that you were feeling because of how you were raised, you probably felt already like you were too grown for who you are. At least for me, that was my issue. It's like, I don't need anyone telling me what to do. I know what to do. I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't need nobody. I can do this on my own. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually, like, trying heroin for the first time, trying all these different substances for the first time. At least for me, I think I was a little bit confused at first because, I'm not in recovery with substances like that, pharmaceuticals, but not like street drugs type of thing, but it's all the same. And the fact that we're all covering up something, we're all covering it up, and during that time when you were using, did your parents, surely they must have known at a certain time, other than the weed, that you started using other stuff, right?
Yeah, so I believe it was my junior year. Got real into Xanax, like same time with the coke and heroin. I remember like stopping that because I was like, these drugs are too hard for me. So I stopped doing that stuff as much, and I started taking Xanax a lot. It was a good like 2 or 3 months. I was taking Xanax like every day, and I would just keep upping the dose, trying to see how far I could go with it, like how long my blackouts could be for, or whatever. And one day I ended up overdosing at school on Xanax. Like I popped 8, or I snorted 4 and popped the rest, and total of like 8 or 9 bars, and OD'd at school. I remember waking up in the back of an ambulance, like trying to run out of the ambulance. But I guess I was outside the front of the school, foaming out of my mouth, and I ended up getting caught. I guess this is all what I've been told because I was in such a blackout then, but I went home. My parents took me home. I got in a fight. I think I got physical with my mother, and I ended up running off like 5 miles down to my girlfriend at the time's house, and they called the cops. I remember the cops coming to the door, and I was like pissed off because like, you fucking told them I was here, like now the cops are here. I remember running, jumping over the wall in the backyard, and they chased me, and they tried to get me with an assault charge because the cop fell jumping over the wall, and they tried blaming that on me. But yeah, it was a horrible time because I remember running, and my brother lived up the street from my ex-girlfriend, and I remember seeing him turn the corner as I'm running up the street, like just happened to be there at that perfect timing. And I remember stopping, like, what the fuck? Like, you're betraying me too? Like, my oldest brother, just like my mentor, I look up to him. And I remember just screaming at him, saying the most hateful, hurtful things to him that I could at the time. Then I got tackled from the back and arrested. And yeah, at that point, they knew that I was using other drugs. And I remember them taking me to like therapy and stuff to do like drug evaluations. And I started opening up a bit about it then. But before that, I don't think they really knew that I was doing stuff too much. I think my mom always had my back. I think she caught me with a jar of weed in my hoodie pocket because it was all bulging out. It was like a mason jar full of weed in my pipe and everything. A little setup right there. And I was walking out the house, and she stopped me, like, what's in your pocket? Like, forcefully grabbed it. And so she knew. I don't think she told my father at that point, but she's always had my back. I love my mom, but...
So you like you said, I mean, it seems like it was a miracle that you were able to graduate from high school then.
Yeah, it was a miracle I didn't get kicked out, too. The fact I didn't get kicked out. I know they're talking about sending me to, like, the Last Chance school downtown somewhere. I forgot what it was called, and somehow my parents talked them down from that and had them let me stay. But my senior year is when a lot of things really changed for me in high school. Like, at that point, I was pretty much like, this is my last year of school. I don't give a fuck. Like, and being a senior at the school, I remember feeling like I had authority there almost, and all the monitors there, they knew me and were cool with me, and they knew it was my last year. And I think at that point too, all the teachers just wanted to get me the fuck out of there. So they were like, we're just gonna pass him. Like I probably missed half of my classes that year, but I still did all my work, still passed all my tests, and that year I started dabbling in the summer before senior year. I started dabbling in psychedelics and taking acid, and that's when my life. That was a really pivotal point in my life that still stands with me today.
Yeah,
the psychedelics, the way it opened my mind to see the world in a different view, and see substances in a different view. And I tried sticking to just natural stuff at that point because ODing the year before on Xans and still kind of drinking and touching other stuff every now and then. I completely stopped once I got into psychedelics. And that was I remember taking a test, like my SATs or something, while on like 5 hits of acid and not knowing really what I was doing. Like, I guess I'm taking a test, fuck. And I got like one of the higher scores on it. Or my ASVABs, on the ASVABs, I got like an 80 or something.
Wow.
While tripping, and I didn't study for anything, but I was like, damn, this makes you powerful. So I started abusing acid and stuff. I would take it like every day at school. I had a really kind of warped viewpoint on it, but I don't blame myself for it because it was a beautiful experience my first time taking it. And I remember wanting to share this with everybody. So I would buy enough to give out half of it, and then I'd sell the other half so I could get another same amount and just give it away to people for free at school. And it didn't work out like that. Not everybody got that same experience as me that I was hoping. And there's a couple times where I almost got caught. I remember they tried searching me. It took me to the office and searched me. But like I said, the monitors are really cool. So the monitor who came and grabbed me, took me to the hall, and they were like, hey, I got to take you to the office and search you. Whatever you have on you, gave to your buddy. And had like an ounce of mushrooms, a bunch of tabs on me, and some weed, and I think maybe a little bag of coke, and gave it all to my buddy. And they took me up, and I just ate a bunch of mushrooms and acid. I remember that was an intense, never gonna forget that experience, like being in there with the cop sitting right there, the vice principal, and like the assistant something. And I remember looking at the vice principal, talking to her, trying to not smile because in the corner of my eye, the cop and the other person sitting on this couch on the side of the room, on the left side of this room. And I remember seeing it spin in circles. And like the vice principal's face is morphing while they're just talking to me. They're like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm just nervous. Like, why are you guys searching me? and and then they told me they thought I had the keys to the school, which I guess I can say that now. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did have the keys, and the janitor left them on the door one day, and I took them, and we definitely had fun with that, just going wherever I wanted during school and going in the basement, smoking weed like underneath the halls and going back up, and the whole hall smells like weed. But yeah, I definitely ran amok my senior year, but I ended up graduating barely that year, but I did it still,
That makes perfect. Like certain things that you said when you're like, they probably just wanted me the hell out of there. I think that's exactly what they did to me because I probably should have failed 8th grade twice. I only failed it once. Little travieso, man. But okay, so you were doing, all of the fact that you were using acid in school, bro. I don't. That's crazy to me because like being such a, I guess a little bitch or whatever. I would be so paranoid, bro, to be around people and stuff. But like you said, most of the time you weren't even there, right? You were ditching a lot, things like that. Too.
Yeah, but I remember being in class, like. I really enjoyed the experiences I would get because I would really dissect the crowd or like the students, and I'd be sitting in the back of the class just frying and like seeing how people are talking, and it kind of taught me some like life skills. Or yeah, we were all kids then, but it still kind of helped me for today, like seeing how people act and like why they're acting this way, and like really dissecting everything everybody's saying and just the whole situation. Like we're in these boxes in school learning. It was a really mind-bending experience, but also a really good like way to open my eyes to unveil this invisible world.
And at that point you had stopped using like the heroin and all of that other stuff.
I think I was dabbling in coke a little bit, but I didn't touch heroin. I stopped Xans completely after that overdose, and maybe touched it like 1 or 2 more times, and then I was like, no more.
Did you have any goals of going to college, anything like that?
No, I will say I had a goal of joining the military. I always wanted to join the military, be a Marine, be in the front lines until I ended up taking that first initial dose of acid. And I remember just sitting there thinking about the world and like did that crush that. I was like, why the fuck do I want to join the military when they're killing people? And we got the wars going on right now, and I think it's horrible. It's disgusting.
Scary.
It's scary. It's scary for the world, but it's also just sad.
Yeah, it is, man. It's really rough, bro. So you graduated. What did you do after you graduated? Did you have any? Were you working at the time?
So after I graduated, so I started dating a chick in sophomore year. She's a freshman, I was a sophomore, and we went together until I was about 20. So about 5 years.
Okay.
And so as soon as I graduated, I was just still smoking weed, doing whatever I was doing. My parents were getting really fed up, so I ended up leaving their house for a bit. Went to go basically live with my ex and her mom while she was still going to school. Would just be hanging out. Really, I was just being a bum for like a year after high school or a few months after high school, and would just chill at her house, get high, smoking weed. And
she used to?
She smoked weed and started taking psychedelics with me a little bit. She definitely smoked weed with me, but at this point it was basically just weed and psychedelics for me. And occasionally we would drink, like, just to do it, or on holidays. And our relationship got really rough. We were always arguing. There was points where it got physical, like physically abusive. It was definitely mentally abusive. It was not a good time. I should have left in the first 2 years. After the first time she hit me, should have left then. But I was like, this is love, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, being my first love and high school sweethearts and stuff. Like, I stayed, and I definitely shouldn't have. But I started working at Citibank, I think. I ended up buying my first car, leasing it out, and I lost my job like shortly after that, after the first month of getting that vehicle. I remember I was still doing Uber Eats and DoorDash to make the money to pay for that car, but they wanted the car back, so they came and repoed it, and they were pissed. I remember they were pissed off when they repoed my car because we drove like 20,000 miles in a month, just driving. I had a car, I had freedom, so I was like, let's get out of this house finally and just drive. And I love to travel, so, that was like the first taste of kind of traveling for me.
Yeah.
But eventually, me and her, we got our own spot. I was about 19. We got our own spot. She was working at first. I don't even remember where I was working. I've job hopped so much through the years. Like, I was thinking about it, I probably had 17 jobs in like the past like 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
Like, quite a bit. And, so we got our own apartment. We're there for a year. And I think I was working at a call center for most of that time, and she lost her job, so I was paying all the bills. Wanted to do stuff, I wanted to travel, wanted to go out and do things, but all of our money was going towards bills basically, and weed. I definitely was picking up weed a lot more during those times, and it was rough because when we didn't have weed, we would argue.
Yeah.
And that sucks. So I'd spend like most of my paycheck on weed, if not the bills. And so all it was weed and bills. And
you were nothing too heavy at that time.
No, occasionally we would drink, but even then she didn't like it too much, and she kind of always held me down to not do other things. But she was working overnights at Jack in the Box at one point, and I remember the first time I tried meth, my buddy picked me up while we were waiting for her overnight, and we went to 29th Street and picked up another friend of his, and just got high for the first time on meth. That was the first time I touched meth at about 19, and didn't touch it again for another like 2 years after that. But I remember doing it then, and I was curious. At that point, I was just more curious as to what it is. I've tried heroin, tried Xans, tried weed, psychedelics.
Yeah. You took Adderall for all those years too,
Yeah.
It's very similar.
And then the Adderall. And that was something I remember. I was like, I feel like I'm on Adderall almost, but a little bit stronger. Stronger, more of a head change, but it wasn't very comfortable. I remember the next day, we used to call it like meth mouth, where like because our mouths are so dry, it feels like you get little cuts on the top of your mouth and tongue, and so uncomfortable. And me and my buddy would joke around about that all the time until it got serious with us later on. But yeah, so we were living at this spot, me and my girl, and after about a year of just, she lost her job, and then after so long, I was like trying to push her to get back into working so we could do stuff or grow. She wanted to settle down while I wanted to travel and see the world and just do things. She was more into settling down. We would definitely clashed over that and butted heads. And we would always be arguing. And one night, like, it got really bad. We had a horrible argument. I ended up getting charged with like kidnapping and domestic violence, and went to jail overnight, got out. She went back to her mother's house, and a week later we tried to fix things, and I got the same set of charges. Like, we were in the car, got in an argument, same set of charges. When we got out, somebody called the cops, and I remember like leaving her there, and the people took her home or something. And 2 days later, I get a call from my mom. Why are the police looking for you, Rudy? Like, what the fuck did you do?
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to turn yourself in or talk to them. They just want to talk. So
For you, dog.
oh man, don't miss that.
That's funny.
But yeah, so I went and talked to the cops. They arrested me. I was in county for like a month. That was my first time in jail, or like actually doing the stay there longer than a night. And that was kind of what really unleashed that addiction for me, to just go all in after that. I remember getting out of county, and when we first got in that first argument, the week before the second one, or I first got arrested, I had to move apartments because I got the cops called there, and they said you have to leave, basically. And they gave me time. They gave me about a week or two before to find a new spot before they put it on my record, so I could go into this new place without that eviction on my record. And I ended up getting a new spot, putting a down payment down, and then moving in. And then just like the day of, I ended up getting arrested again for that second time. And when I got out of jail, luckily somebody paid for the apartment for that first month for me. And I remember just sitting there like that first night out of jail, and in my apartment, sleeping on the floor, air mattress. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night trying to turn over and grab her, and just hitting the pillow. And I remember just feeling this pain, like holy shit, like I fucked up, like I lost love of my life, and super depressed. And so I started drinking a lot. I started drinking heavily, and my best friend from middle school, the one who I thought gave me rubbing alcohol, he was already into heroin at this point, and I knew he was. I always told him to keep it away from me, until shortly after that, I told him, hey man, like, come over, let's hang out. I knew he always had it on him in this little jar, so I told him like let me try some of that, and got him to let me smoke it with him. I remember I hated it because this was the first time actually feeling the effects. Unlike in high school, I didn't smoke enough. This time I smoked enough. I remember getting sick for like 30 minutes, throwing up. But then I remember going back to my couch, and after throwing up for 30 minutes and sitting there and realizing like, holy shit, I don't feel anything. Like, I don't feel sad. I don't feel the pain. Like, it's just kind of great. Like, I don't have to feel this deep pain I was feeling. And that was kind of like what shot me into a depression, just that breakup with my ex. And, you know, losing somebody like that, it was worse than seeing my grandparents die, or like, which was horrible.
Has your thought process on that changed though now? Like, do you feel like now, talking to who you are at this point, like, did you feel like that was a relationship that needed to end?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you know, I see that my higher power, the universe, whatever, is gonna put me where I need to be, no matter how much I fight it. It's like going down a river, you know, or being stuck in a river. If you try to swim upstream, you're still going to end up downstream. Like, you're going to get tired out, and it's still going to put you where this river's going to lead to. But if you swim with the stream, you know, it's going to be smooth, and you're going to flow with it. But I was trying to swim upstream for so long, and I was just hitting rocks and fighting it. And
yeah, I mean, dude, that's so, I like that analogy. And it also reminds me, I used to listen to Loveline all the time growing up, and Dr. Drew and all them. And he always talked about, you know, the percentage of relationships out of high school that survive is like less than 2%. He's like, those relationships are meant to end. They're meant to end. He's like, most people, you know, it's crazy how some people, like, you'll see people that have stayed together since high school and they're miserable. You know what I mean? It's like you have to know when to pick up the pieces and when to put them down. That's just how it is. But like you said, instead of fighting going up the stream, you're still being pulled. All you're doing is exhausting yourself. You know, now you're at least letting yourself flow with it. And I like that. I think that's pretty smart.
You know, and like where I'm at today, looking back at it, like, yeah, I could have ended it 2 years in a relationship when I knew I should have, but I chose to fight it and didn't. And so I got into jail, got put on probation for the next 5 years. And it led to this deep depression. It probably wouldn't have been as painful if I would have ended it then, you know?
Yeah. And also, but you also, if you think about like the whole picture, you wouldn't be sitting here on this couch right now had it maybe ended 2 years earlier or something.
That's
You
true.
know what I mean? So, dang, man. All right. So that was it, huh? You said you were just living in this apartment. You had just gotten out of jail. You were sleeping on an air mattress. You felt this depression, and then you really started dabbling in the heroin. Was that your only thing for a while there? Did you just stick with that for a minute?
It was alcohol, really alcohol heavily, and heroin. So initially it was alcohol every day, drinking like 3 40s a night, until I realized I need a pee so much. Like, screw this. And I started buying bottles of vodka and turned into handles. And I would do heroin like on the weekends for the first month. And then I would do it once a week or once every 3 days until I don't even remember how it happened. I realized one day, like, I've been doing heroin every day for the past month. So I was like, I need to stop. Like, 'cause I remember, like I said, I'm curious. I like to do research on stuff before I do it. Like, I did it with the psychedelics, did it with weed, did it with heroin before I like started doing it. Did the research, knew there was a danger of it. At the time, I knew I was smart enough to not get stuck or addicted to it. Like, I'm not an addict at that point. And, you know, and I'm smart enough I won't get hooked. And I remember trying to quit after that month, and remember just feeling miserable. My buddy comes over, I hit it, I feel better, and I was gonna realize, like, I fucked up. Like,
should never dabbled in that
dabbled
shit.
in it. And I remember it was crazy. I remember calling I connected at the time, at like the next day to get more, and I remember sitting and talking with him for like 30 minutes. Like, hey man, like, I think I fucked up. Like I'm pretty new to this, but I can't. Like, I feel shitty when I don't do it. He's like, yeah, you're getting physically addicted. And he was like, feel this, and had me feel his arms and like his legs. And it was just a bunch of cysts, like just a bunch of bumps from shooting up for 13 years. And he was like, bro, like, I'm going to stop answering you. Like, I'm not going to stall you anymore. Like, this is the last time. Like, just stop this shit now before you get into it. And, you know, should have took that warning, but, you know, I'm just in my depression, enjoying the highs too at the same time. Like,
yeah. Your arms look. Did you inject it or were you smoking
luckily
it?
I never did.
Okay, good. I was gonna say your arms look smooth, bro. I don't see any bumps or anything on you.
He had those bumps in.
Poor guy, man. That's rough.
But like the fact that I was giving him money, but he saw how fresh I was into this, and was like, you need to get out of this now. And like, he's had his sobriety time and going back to it for the past 13 years. He told me, and you know, that conversation still impacts me today. Like, that was such a big warning.
Yeah.
In my face right there. Kind of back to the river, you know, like
somebody in the same position, you know what I mean? It's like a reality check.
He saw his beginning in me, I think.
Yeah, man.
Like,
is he still with us?
I'm not sure.
You don't know?
I don't know. He might be.
And I just think too of how lucky, especially now, man. I mean, 2023, I'm guessing this was the early 2000s, you know, I mean, now just with fentanyl and everything how it is now, like, it's a miracle that even for that month that you were using, at least you were getting something that wasn't gonna, you know what I mean? It wasn't like some laced shit or whatever. It's just so scary. It's on a whole nother level now too, man. It's so scary. The relationship with your parents at this time, were they still answering your calls? Did they have to set healthy boundaries with you? Like, how did that work?
They didn't know I was at this time in my apartment alone. They didn't know that I was using it. Like, I remember having them come over sometimes, and I'd clean up my place, make it look real nice, kind of try to play it off. And like, my mom would be like, oh, I love your place, it looks nice, like, I hope you're doing good. And be like, yeah, I'm doing good. The fakest smile I could put on, you know, at that time in that depression, it was a horrible pain.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd never get out of it, but I faked it to make it, or tried to, until I remember trying to quit heroin after like 6 months doing it, and I was clean for maybe a month, if that. And I found this new job working at a nursery, which I loved that job, growing plants all day. Like, it was peaceful, especially in my mind state. Like, going there, it felt nice.
I feel like that type of position suits you very well, bro. You seem like you'd be very good with nature, like soil. Like, it takes a special person. I have a green thumb, so I feel like I'm good at telling when other people have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, I was working there for about a year, and I remember COVID was becoming a big thing, or it wasn't COVID. Maybe it was COVID. Something was happening. Maybe minimum wage was going up, and they had to let go of a bunch of people. And they saw me on camera fucking around, and they had to let go of me. But as they should have, because I remember coming to work and my coworkers telling me, "Bro, you smell like alcohol. You look like shit." Because I'd be up all night drinking.
Yeah.
And then I lost that job, and I don't even remember the first time or when exactly, but around that time was the first time I tried fentanyl, and I immediately fell in love. I was like, this doesn't taste like shit like the heroin did, because I just smoked it or snorted it, and I was like, damn, smoking fentanyl doesn't taste like shit. It's such an easy way. I only need a couple of hits and I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
this is great. And then I fell into that really bad.
So when you got into the heroin use, you said, I know you a little bit earlier, you had said around 19. How long did that continue?
So I was actually about 20 when I got into heroin.
About 20. Okay.
Yeah. And that continued probably like 8 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very short lived. I feel like the hard drugs for me was pretty recent, but I'm now looking back at like the time's getting longer and longer. I'm like, how the fuck did it get this long? Like,
Yeah.
I told myself maybe a year and then I'd be good.
Yeah.
And pushing over 4 years, and finally coming out of that at least. And
It's interesting. Sorry, not to cut you off, but it's interesting to me. Where typically, you hear stories and people are like, they just kind of started. They don't really think about it. But the fact that you're very smart, and I could tell because you're like, you did research on it and you try to figure it out and all this. So like, oh yeah, I'll stop after a year. I'm not going to get addicted. Like, to me, that shows right there that you're very intelligent in the way that you moved and, but it's an addiction. So the addiction's always going to win type of thing.
yeah.
So after heroin, did you go right into the fentanyl? Was that like at around 21, around that age?
Yeah, right around 21, 21 and a half maybe. I quit the heroin for a little bit, and then like maybe a month, and then a month after that, after getting clean, I was still drinking all the time. So I wasn't even clean. I was still drinking.
Yeah.
Going to raves and stuff. Got real into raving and just doing a bunch of Molly and coke out in the middle of the desert in Phoenix. And yeah, then eventually fentanyl came into my life, and I remember feeling like I don't want to quit this time. Like, I don't. But then, like I said, I lost that job and I couldn't find a new job because I was too busy getting high. I don't even know where I found the money to get the fentanyl, but I would somehow come up with it. And something else during this time I forgot to mention, like even with the heroin, I've had my own apartment. It was a nice area, and I had this neighbor move in like 3 months after I was living there. And I remember the first time he met me, he was like, "You smoke, bro?" I was like, "Smoke what?" He was like, "Smoke weed?" I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah." And I was like, "Sweet, I got a neighbor I can sit and smoke weed with." First night I go over there, he's got some random people he met in front of Walmart over there, and everybody's got needles hanging out of their arms, different colors. And I remember that was kind of a shock to me, like,
damn,
first time seeing that, just walking into that, and that kind of scared me. But at the same time, I was like, sweet, I use heroin too, like,
yeah.
so I'm comfortable here. I can use shit here with them. And
that's fucking nuts to me, dude. How like, and correct me if I'm wrong, though, but it's like I hear you as kind of like you're wandering around at this point in your life, right? Like you're still trying to figure out like which direction to go. You're just using or whatever. Like I said, no coincidence. Like the fact that this dude just comes up to you, "Hey, homie, you smoke?" Who the fuck asks that? Like when you think about that, you know what I mean? I don't walk into a building and think shit like that. But because you're under that veil in the first place, you got that, that wool over your eyes type of shit, type of an analogy. You don't see the red flags in that, going into the house. Like, it's just crazy to think that, if there is, and I truly believe, I believe in God, bro. Everyone believes their own thing, but I truly do feel like if there is an amazing, powerful, positive entity in this world, like, God or Jesus or whatever, there's obviously an opposite.
Oh yeah.
And it's crazy to me how he's got his own fucking soldiers on the streets, bro, and how they bring you down. Like, that's nuts to think about.
It's insane. Like, I've definitely thought about that, and where I'm at now, looking at that, I'm like, yeah, that was my addiction, or this evil entity, or whatever it is. The darkness was definitely pulling me in. Like, it knew where I was at, knew where I was vulnerable, and put this person in my life. Like, he wasn't paying rent, he was on Social Security or something, or disability, and so he was living there for free. It only lasted so long for him. Like, he moved out shortly after I did, but yeah, like just that situation just happened to come into my life at that point. It was just the perfect storm for that to turn into what it turned into. So yeah, they taught me how to snort heroin over there. They were trying to get me to shoot up, but I always turned the needle down, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lost my job. So fast forward again, I lost my job eventually while using fentanyl, and I stayed in that apartment without paying rent for like 2 or 3 months, like with the eviction notice, until they're like, yeah, you got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my parents up. Like I said, we fought a bit when I was 18. Didn't really have the strongest connection from about 18 to 20, 21. And I called them up and I was like, hey, like, here's the situation. Like, I'm addicted to opiates. Like, I've been smoking fentanyl and heroin. And I basically called them begging, like, can I please move in? I need a detox. I need to get clean. I'll move in, stop using. So they were like, yeah, the only stipulation, you have to not use, you have to detox and go through it. And so I did. I moved in with them and kind of reconnected a bit. It was awkward, I think for them especially, very uncomfortable for them. I was clean for a little bit there. Probably like 2 months off of opiates, 2 or 3 months, if that, maybe. I remember I was starting to use kratom a lot more because I was like, oh, I could use kratom instead of opiates.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing. And eventually kratom was getting like 50 grams a day and it was just uncomfortable to take. So I stopped taking that. Was still drinking over there. I remember waking up with shots in my bed, my mom coming in. Be like, it smells like a fucking brewery in here. Like, have you been drinking? I was like, no. It's not like I'm dropping a shot on the floor. Like, I was from the other night. Like, I wasn't last night. And yeah, I got real into drinking consistently.
Man. So when you did move in with your family, you know, I'm hearing you say, hey, I'm addicted or whatever. I know it was probably hard to open up about it because it was something that you hadn't said before. But did you feel open? Like, did you feel comfortable being able to open up about it because of the desperation that you were in of needing to stay somewhere? Or was there also, on top of that, the knowing that you wanted to get clean?
I think the knowing that I wanted to get clean, like that, plus I need to stay somewhere. And
okay.
I think it was more of a knowing I need to get clean, because at that point I could have moved in and used without telling them I was using.
Yeah.
Could have been like, hey, I lost my job, and could have made up some lie. So I did at the time, actually, why I lost my job. I told them they had to get rid of a bunch of people, and which was true to an extent, but I did fuck up there too. Yeah. So I deserved to get fired, let go. But it was just that desperation, like wanting to not use, because I tried for a bit, like, or a little bit at that point. I thought it was still gonna be easy. So I thought, oh, I change of scenery, not being alone all the time, move back with my parents, I'll be fine. I can detox, get off this shit, and I'll be fine. And that was not the case, because I just substituted another thing for another. And at that point, I had no idea that was even a thing. I wasn't in recovery at all. I was just trying to get clean.
Yeah.
And, so I ended up getting a job at a smoke shop. It was a really cool job there. I loved that job. And I was working there using kratom, because they sold kratom. So I was open with them, like, yeah, I used to use drugs, and now they'd give me kratom for free.
I was gonna say, it's probably not the best environment to be in, you know what I mean?
No, it definitely wasn't.
I'm sure your parents weren't too thrilled about that either.
And I remember even telling my mom, like, I take kratom, and they just didn't understand what it was. And I didn't understand to an extent, or to the full extent, like how much kratom still left the door open in my brain.
Yeah.
Like that craving for that opiate type feeling, or just a feeling in general, whether it was alcohol or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was at the smoke shop there for a while. I remember, I think somebody came in one day and they smelled like blues or fentanyl. And I remember asking them, like, hey, bro, like, you got any more of that? And like, what? I was like, I can smell like some pills. And went out to his car, hit it real quick, and then I was back off to it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know why I did it at the time. Like, I was doing all right. I had this job. They helped me get a vehicle. I was just paying the boss off for the vehicle he bought for me. And then I started using again. And this time it really took off, though, because I was at the smoke shop. It was a chill job. They didn't really care if I came high on weed. So if anything, I could say, yeah, I was just smoking weed.
They were enabled. It was almost enabled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember sneaking off in the back. Like, they didn't smoke weed or anything. So the whole family who owned the smoke shop. So it's kind of weird they owned a smoke shop in my
Yeah,
house.
that is weird. Very weird.
It was money for them. So, you know, it was their hustle. And I'd go into the bathroom and smoke a pill. Like this, after a while of being back on it. And they would ask me, like, hey, what's that smell? I'm like, oh, I don't know. It smells weird, huh? Like, I smell that too. It's kind of bullshit.
What is that? You're looking under the counters.
Yeah. But I was there for quite a while.
So you've had a good hustle though, like as far as your work ethic. At least, I mean, it seems like you showed up.
Yeah, I would work. I would get sick near the end of each day, like at my other jobs, and go home. Can't wait to hit that pill, or leave the premises of my job and go into the alley and just smoke real quick, get well, or go get a shot or two, and that'll hold me off so I can get high.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely, it was usually always good to pay for my addiction.
Yeah.
Enabled myself. Like, I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, at least, like, I didn't want to be homeless. Didn't want to be in the streets.
Yeah.
And that was the goal of mine, to stay off the streets. And eventually, you know, it did lead to that. So at my parents, we were doing it right there. And then, yeah, my addiction started really taking off with fentanyl. And I was at a point where I was doing like 25 to 50 pills a day if I could get my hands on it.
Damn.
And I'd come home late. I would nod out in the car in the front yard, wake up. My mom would wake me up and tell me to get in the house before my dad sees me. Like, she still had my back at this point, you know, and she still does to this day. Like, even everything I put her through. And I remember one day she woke me up and I was feeling sick or something, or I was just in my addiction, just high, and I got pissed off at her. I was like, "Why the fuck you waking me up? Like, I'm not even nodding out." Like,
yeah,
I remember, like, I threw my shoe at her that was sitting here, and we got in this big argument. She ended up telling my dad about it. They're like, "You got to leave." And I left that night for like 2 days, and like, "You can't come back. Like, you can grab your shit and you got to leave." And I had a buddy of mine who had his own spot, and he let me come live with him. And they didn't really know I was in my addiction. I don't think he knew at all, actually. And he also was the manager at a pizza shop, so he let me go work for him as assistant manager. And I was doing that and doing delivery drives for them. I remember I would take like 45 minutes on a 5-minute delivery around the corner because I'd just be knotted out somewhere.
Yeah. And
eventually I ended up getting, because I got a first DUI somewhere around this time. And I don't think I might have been at my parents still. Might have been right before I got kicked out, right before like shit was really starting to hit the fan with my parents. I ended up getting a DUI, knotted out in front of a house. My foot was still in the brake. And this was horrible. I remember waking up, like, sun was barely coming up, and I remember seeing flashlights because the sun still wasn't up enough, and they had like 6 flashlights out. They're like, "TPD, open up your door. Like, are you all right?" And I woke up, a straw fell out of my mouth. I had 2 open containers in my car, and 2 tall cans, and I remember like freaking out, like, "Oh shit, the cops are here!" Like, yeah, I'm good. I hopped out real quick. I had a bag of meth stuck to the back of my leg that fell out his shoe. The foil fell out his shoe with like blues on it, and I just looked down at it and look up at him, and I'm like,
no convenience.
Like, I don't know what that is, basically. And like, I knew I was screwed then, so they ended up arresting me. Got my first DUI then.
That was your first, like, pretty much like drug related charge too, huh?
Yeah. I mean, besides getting caught at weed with school, when I was younger, but yeah, like, and I was already on probation, so I'm like, holy shit! Like, I remember telling the cops, like, "I'm on probation, like, please." I'm trying to beg, like, flee my. Yeah. I was just trying to beg, and yeah, it didn't work out. They didn't give a fuck. They're like, "Yeah, we'll contact your PO." Man. Yeah, that was an overnight stay. Got out, and so yeah, then I started working at this pizza shop and got kicked out. Like, shortly after that first DUI, I got kicked out of my parents. The timeline is so, like, it's so hard to tell how much time passed because I was so in my addiction at that point. Yeah, that time was just kind of moving. And at the pizza shop, I was working there for quite a while, living with at the time, like, my best friend, his girlfriend. It was cool though. At the house, we had 23 animals, a bunch of lizards, mice, cats, dogs, and I had a back room. They had the porch, and they built out a different room when his parents used to live there, and I lived back there, so it was kind of secluded from the house, so I could go in there and use.
Like every situation, huh? It's just a little bit of it enabling. Yeah, I mean, it just takes you down that way.
I was remember one night I was doing delivery. My buddy just dropped off before I left to do this delivery, and I was just smoked a bunch with him, and I got in my car, started doing delivery. Not even like not even a quarter mile from the pizza shop, I was looking at my phone and putting the address where I'm going, and I see a cop behind me flashing the lights, pull me over. I hide all my shit real quick, and like I stuffed it in between my seat and the cup holder so it wouldn't be seen. And they're like, she asked me, "Are you all right? You swerved back there?" Like, "Yeah, I'm just doing a pizza delivery." Like, kind of pointed to the box right next to me with the pizza, and she saw my uniform on. She's like, "All right." I took my ID. I think she just asked me to step out at the time. She said, "Can you step out of the vehicle?" I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of weird, but all right." And then as soon as I step out, she's like, "Turn around, put your hands behind your back." It's like, what the fuck? So I turned around, I look in my car, and on the pizza box, sitting a foil with some blues on it.
Oh,
thought I hit everything, but I was so out of it that I guess I didn't. And
once again, there's no coincidences, bro. No coincidence.
No coincidence.
I think I said no conveniences earlier. No coincidences is what I meant.
I knew what you're trying to say. Yeah. But yeah, and I got very lucky this time. It was like middle of COVID, and
damn, that was a rough time.
Didn't take me into jail. They paper arrested me with all class 1 misdemeanors, drug charges. They found meth and the foils and blues in my car, and they let me have somebody pick up my car. They took me home, and yeah, so I was able to get my vehicle, went home that night. As soon as I went home after getting that DUI, I knew there was shit under my seat, or I was hoping there was. It didn't find, and they didn't find it, so I hopped in my car, told my buddy I'm done, I'm not going to use anymore, bro. Like, I apologized to him because he got me this job, and I lost this job because I just got pulled over for DUI.
Man,
told him I'm done, and as soon as I get home, if I can go in my car to say, "Hey, I need to go to my car, like, see what the fuck they did," go and smoke that pill, and I was still back at it, and I'm not too sure at this point. So then I was just in my addiction pretty deep and drinking a lot. My buddy drank, and he didn't really understand the addiction. During this time, I was trying to get clean, though. I was still trying. Like, I would detox myself for like 3 days. Like, I lost count of detoxes after about 40. So I'd say it right now I'm at least like 60 detoxes just on my own, just trying to do it. And maybe it was 3 days or maybe it was a week at a time, but never was longer than a couple weeks. I tried Suboxone, tried methadone. I was trying everything. The one thing I didn't try at that point was rehab. And I was thinking, I remember doing research on rehabs, like maybe I should go to rehab, like, because I was just looking it up, like, how the fuck do I get clean on Reddit? And for like hours, just like reading people's stories about trying to get clean and like saying it's possible. I'm like, this shit's not possible. Like, I've been trying.
Yeah.
And
well, like you said earlier in your story, I didn't have recovery. I didn't have, the knowledge and the way that you start thinking about things when you come into a place. Like
exactly. Yeah. So another big pivotal point in my life, I was still in this depression. That's why I was still using, I believe, or part of the reason. And I enjoyed just kind of living that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't fun at all, like looking back at it, it's horrible. Just being in my car and shit and getting high all the time. So I remember getting like a half pound of mushrooms and still using blues. But I remember taking like 7 grams and getting really depressed and, realizing like I've been trying to get clean for this so long. It's not working. Like, I'm fuck this. I gave up. Like, and the night I was like, I'm going to fucking kill myself. Like, fuck this. I give up. And was just crying, and I had like 25 pills on me. I ended up taking 20 of them, swallowing them. And I remember falling out on my bed, like falling out. And I remember looking at my body from above and seeing myself and realizing, holy shit, I think I did it. Cause like, I felt like I looked lifeless down there. I was like, I'm fucking dead. Like, I did it. And I remember freaking out, like screaming in my mind or whatever it was at that point, because I was just floating by my body, like no vocals, of course, but just like freaking out, screaming like, God, please help me. Like, I fucked up. Please. Like, I don't want to die. Like, scared that I did it. And this is insane to me. So I remember a white light came into my room. Like it's just a blinding white light. And it was, I feel like it was an entity or something of some sort. Some kind of energy was definitely there, some divine energy. And I remember just getting like slungshot back into my body, waking up, gasping for breath, like just gasping and realizing like, holy shit, like,
Yeah.
like, what the fuck was that?
Dude, that's nuts.
It's the like pivotal point in my life right there. And it kind of like, I always knew there's a bigger connection, something bigger than me out there, but I was like, this shit is real, like for really real. Like,
You know, I know you said that you were like a super spiritual person, right? And I know it's different for everyone else, man, but like that's one of the things, honestly, from doing, like I said, this is episode 70 something, like over the past year that we've had people in here talking about their stories and where they've gone through. Do you realize, dog, like the number one thing that all of those stories have in common is there was a point in the person's life where they cried out. Like they literally cried out. Like it wasn't like, hey, homie, I'm sorry. It was like, please, God, do something. I'm going to die. You know, where I heard somebody talking recently, they were talking about with addiction and how they said, you know, when the end of everyone's life is going to end at a certain point, but when you get to the end of your life, are you going to say, hey, you know, I had fun using my substances. I had fun doing what I needed to do. Or are you going to say, what the hell did I do? You know, and I think that crying out comes from that moment, dude. Like to hear you say that you had that experience of seeing yourself lifeless and screaming out. I truly believe that with all my heart that was like a divine moment, man.
It definitely was. And
wow,
you
really?
know, I don't know if it was something else that was crazy. I don't know if it was mushrooms or my higher power or whatever it was, but I remember getting sent into like an immediate like withdrawal while still on these mushrooms, and like I started detoxing. Like it's like I took Suboxone too soon and precipitated withdrawal or something. I got real sick, but it only lasted like an hour, and then I still had the rest of those mushrooms. So for the next 2 days, I wanted to get like almost like that experience again without killing myself. I wanted to connect with whoever that was that would come in my room. So I took that half pound over the next 2 days, and just 3 days straight of just like sitting there in this deep thought, like thinking about what the fuck happened, and like
gotcha,
feeling this invisible energy in my life and like connecting with it. And it got really intense, and it was amazing. It was a beautiful experience because I came out of it, and I realized I came out of my depression at the same time too.
Really?
I think it was a combination of maybe someone rewiring my brain, but also having that experience of like, life is so fucking precious. I almost died, like, and realizing that there is a higher power out there for me. Like that was, I always thought and kind of knew, but I didn't know, you know, like I was always like weary of it. Like, is this true or is this not true?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't believe it as much until that time. And then I was like, I fully believe it, and like having that faith. And I stayed clean for about 3 weeks after that, which was like one of the longest stretches I had in years at that point. And
it's crazy, bro, like hearing that part of the story, because I also think of that movie, the old school movie The Crow. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. I know about it, but I haven't seen it.
With Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee. But he's like a if I'm not mistaken, he's almost like an angel, but he like a vigilante type of a dude, right? And there's a scene where this woman is using heroin, and her life is all fucked up in her house, and she's getting ready. She just used it, and he walks up to her, bro, and he grabs her by the arm, and he says something like, "This isn't for you," and you just see the heroin start coming out, like dripping, like it like literally gets sucked out of her veins, bro. So to hear you say like even that, like you immediately went into a withdrawal when you had just smoked this shit. That's not. It's just crazy,
it's
bro.
It's not normal. Yeah, like,
it's
that
not.
doesn't happen. Like,
that's crazy, dude. That's nuts.
I still don't know about what happened there. Like, I will say, like, I'm very interested in the benefits that mushroom or psilocybin can bring to people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to experience it anymore. I've already had my experiences, but I would definitely in the future want to like maybe do some studies on it or help donate to charities who are studying this stuff to benefit other people's lives. It's made an impact in my life. Almost like psychedelics have since I was 17, since that first initial try. But yeah, so I had 3 weeks, and then I took a drink. Like I took a drink with my buddy, and I was back at it. And I think I was drinking for like 2 days, and I went back to fentanyl. I went and picked up all drunk one day, and I remember like I'm fucking up. Like I'm gonna fall back into my depression. These drugs are gonna put me back in my depression. Luckily, I haven't fallen back into that deep pain anymore. Like, I came to some realizations those 3 days. I went through a lot of internal shit that I was dealing with, like with my ex and the drug use. I was upset with myself for going back to drugs, but I wasn't in that depression. It was just that passing feeling of a little bit of sadness and disappointment in myself. But I remember going back to fentanyl, trying to get on Suboxone again. I tried it a few times before, and I tried it again. Was trying to get involved in COPE and the ILP program, and getting involved in the ILP program, I went to like one class and I was like, fuck this, I can do it on my own with the Suboxone, and I couldn't, so I went back to fentanyl shortly after, like maybe a month after trying on and off Suboxone, and I remember like, maybe if I reach out again, I can quit, and I remember trying to reach out, like, pray, whatever it was for me at that point. I didn't really have an idea of what prayer was, even though I grew up, I didn't mention this earlier, but I did grow up Catholic, and I think that's kind of what I turned against religion at a young age. I think being forced to go to like Sunday school made me like this is BS, like this isn't for me. But at this time of my life with the mushrooms and everything, I was like, there is something to that. I'm grateful I had the experiences, because I do know that prayer is a thing, and you know, my thoughts have definitely changed now on that stuff. But yeah, I'm reaching out again, like to my higher power, trying to pray, and nothing happened really. And at that time, nothing happened. It wasn't immediate, but I was still in my addiction. And one night I was drinking pretty heavily. It was actually right after New Year's last year. And 3 days later, I still had the rest of my Everclear, like 100 proof or 90 proof, whatever, and drank like half the bottle. Went to go pick up. I blacked out for like 10 miles coming back home. And as soon as I come out of my black, I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? I remember honking my horn like to the music. I was having a good old time just after New Year's, was chilling, honking my horn to the music, like a fucking idiot. 2 a.m. only car on the road, and beep, 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 beep. Exactly. And I remember driving by this cop, and I was like, oh shit! And he turned on his lights, pulled me over, and I was thinking like, I'm gonna run. But I'm fucked up. I can't run probably. Dude, you
might as well have had like a fucking light over you over there having a good old time.
He was like, what was going on with the horn? I was like, man, honestly, I told him like I was being fucking stupid. I was just jamming out to my music, honking my horn, like I'm all right. And I remember he grabbed my ID and stuff, went back to his car. I hit the foil real quick because I'm like, I'm fucked. Like I was already on a suspended license from last DUI. Yeah, so I knew I was fucked. And I was like, oh, my PO is going to I'm going to prison probably this time. Like, third DUI. Luckily, the second one was a misdemeanor, but still a third DUI. And yeah, it ended up taking me to jail. I ended up getting arrested for DUI. Didn't search my car. I don't know. I got really fortunate there. Didn't search my car, so they didn't find drugs on me, but they knew I was drinking. And obviously, they took blood work, and they found out I had drugs in my system. But I think at that point, they didn't really give a shit. They probably already figured with my previous record. And yeah, I did 6 months in county that time. And this is when that prayer that I was talking about earlier, I think was answered, because I wasn't going to do it on my own. I was going to move myself out of that comfort on my own. It took me fighting that stream and ending up getting arrested for this third time with a DUI. And that fear in jail, just like, I fucked up. I'm going to prison. I don't know when I'm getting out of jail, if I'm ever going to get out. And I remember starting to get into prayer there. Like I started really praying in jail. And like within the first month, I was like, I read a book. I don't even know what book it was. I read something in there that was like talking about prayer and just giving it up or like having faith. And I did that. And I was like, whatever I'm doing right now in my life, like, God, please just look out for me. Put me where I need to be, or just like, if you want me to go to prison, fuck it. I'll fucking do my time. Like, I just want to be doing the right thing at this point. Like, I was really over this shit. And I remember somebody slid me, I was asking for books, and somebody slid me the AA book. And my prayer was answered right there, like the next day. So I sat down, read that book, and hearing all those stories, all that hope and strength in those, and just like letting go to a higher power. I tried doing my step work on my own in there. Like went through the steps on my own, and it's not the way to do it, but I tried it, and didn't really feel much different, but I remember like having this inspiration, like when I get out, like I didn't plan on joining recovery still, or like a program or fellowship, but I knew that I wanted to stay sober. So I remember like 4 months in my bid, my 6-month county bid, and think I'm probably going to prison. Like I'm still in here. It's the longest time I've spent, and just like praying, like still praying. And around that time, my attorney came to me and he was like, all right, we're going to try to get you into rehab. Like, we're going to try to work with the judge, get you into treatment, and then maybe you don't have to do any more prison time. So somebody from the ARC came to jail, talked to me, did my intake. And then 2 months later or 3 months later, I ended up being able to actually get out of county and come in here. And, you know, that was my first time in a treatment facility after doing 6 months. And like I said, before that arrest, I was looking into rehabs and stuff and making these prayers. And, you know, I realize now I got to be careful what I wish for because it's not always how I want it to end up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came to treatment here. Thought I had it coming out of 30 days treatment, and within like a week I was back at it.
Man,
like,
one of the things you said, and I'm curious to know what you think, right? Because I think about that too. Like for me, you know, my higher power is Jesus, and like reading the Bible, things just start making sense. And like in the book, it talks a lot about parables, and in parables, he talks a lot about like planting, like how you said, like with, you know, how you worked at a nursery, right? So it's like we've talked about this before, where it's like the nurturing soil, right? A plant can't grow unless you give it nurturing soil. The fact that you started reading these books, even though you said, you know, you prayed at this time and you read these books, the seed had been planted though, like inside of you as a person. Like you had already planted that seed of like recovery. But just like anything good in this life, shit don't happen like this. Like, you know, a seed does not grow into a beautiful thing overnight. It starts by being in nurturing soil. You know what I mean? That's what I think about when I hear that story. At least that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with that because I didn't really mention it, but in my apartment alone, during that time when I found my addiction, like I was also trying to fall into like there was that fight between like which path to take, to either keep going down this drug route or take this other path, which I really wanted. I had this vision of myself. I was reading philosophy and just studying stuff, listening to philosophers and just studying history and like Plato and stuff, just trying to grow as a person. But at the same time, I had this thing holding me back, and I kept falling back into the drugs rather than continuing my growth. And yeah, I planted that seed too. And just today, like just recently in my life, I'm finally starting to nourish that part too.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
It's awesome. And yeah, the recovery, like planting those seeds, exactly. And I couldn't do it with my own will, with my own force. You know, I had to have these things like jail that put me in these spots where I needed to be in. That's definitely helped me flourish. Like, so that was my first time in treatment. Went back to drugs after that month of treatment. I went back to drinking first because I went back to my buddy's house. He held the spot for me for the 6 months.
Yeah.
I went back to drinking and then was back in drugs like within that month. He found out. I don't remember how he found out, but he found out I was using again. Ended up kicking me out. Lived in my truck for a little bit that I had at the time and ended up reconnecting with an old friend from high school, and she let me live with her and her girlfriend. And I told them a little bit that I was into drugs and that I've been clean now because all they did was smoke weed. And, you know, I thought this was going to be the change for me. Like, all right, I'm going to stop using here. And I did for maybe like 2 weeks. And I wasn't using, but I found this real good job, this lighting place here in town. And the thing was, on my way to work every day, I drive past or I ride my bike towards this bridge. And at this point, I lost my car. So I was riding a bike again. And yeah, like I had the truck but no license. I was still driving no license. But yeah, I ended up losing that truck, or it stopped working. So thank my higher power for that again.
Yeah.
Like, good time. But I was on my bike, and I remember driving by this bridge every day for those like first few weeks working there. And I was like, damn, I know they're down there using, because I would see the tents underneath this bridge and people coming in and out. And it was right off of Aviation.
So sad, man.
Yeah, it's horrible out there. And I hate seeing that now. You know, I wish there's something I could do, which I am doing it, you know. I'm doing what I can do at this point. But I remember that temptation always being there, seeing those people. And my friend, she had alcohol at her house, so I started drinking her alcohol a little bit. And then, yeah, one day I went to work, and it was like at lunch. She had this horrible craving, and I went over there, found the people, and wandered around until I found somebody I could buy some blues off of, and went back to my addiction, or went back to smoking opiates, fentanyl, and then I had to see my PO like shortly after, like a month after that. I had to see my probation officer, and I told him, like, I went to him asking for help, like, hey, like, I'm really trying to stop, like, I need help, like, I went back to smoking fentanyl. And he's like, how much you've been using? I tell him like how much I've been using, and he's like, all right, we're gonna either send you to treatment or we're gonna take you to jail. It's like, oh, they're gonna send me to treatment, thank goodness. Like,
this would be your second time coming into treatment, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So they gave you that option again.
So they kind of did. They said, here's what we're gonna do with you, and talk to the supervisor. He comes back out and he's like, yeah, we're taking you to jail.
Oh shit.
He calls me around the corner. And around the corner, there's like 10 other officers there. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to treatment. And
Yeah.
arrest me, put me in the back of the car, take me to jail. And I had no bond, probation hold, so I wasn't sure how long I was going to be in there. Until eventually I had a bond hearing, got a bond, and ended up getting bonded out. And it was during that time too, right before then. Yeah, so I got bonded out. The person I was living with, she said, we can't have you living here anymore. Because I told her, like, yeah, I've been fucking up. And, you know, it was a very, very respectful way that I left, and they were really understanding of it, and it was very mutual. I'm glad that I didn't ruin that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I lost some trust, I'm sure, and hurt it a little bit, but didn't destroy it like I have with all the past relationships in my life. And get out, and I'm living on the streets at this point, basically.
Wow.
And so I was living on the street for like a month, and it's like, I got to change something. And I went, checked myself into treatment, told my PO, like, hey, I'm going to treatment. And he's like, good, because I was about to arrest you again. And so
so you made the choice this time to go in.
Yeah. So I came back here to the ARC and was in treatment for did the residential. And I made the decision early on in residential, I'm going to do the 6 or 120-day ILP program.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to do this and commit to this and get fucking clean, get on track in my life, and did the program. Thought I had it. I think one of the biggest things, like, I know this can be a touchy subject for some people, but I was on Suboxone at the time, and I really wish I wasn't, because I think for me, and me personally, it didn't help me, because I would abuse my Suboxone. Even while I was in treatment, I was abusing it. Like, I would not take it for a couple of days, save up my doses so I could take a big dose and get the effect that I was looking for. So when I left treatment, I left a little bit early, didn't even complete my commitment to 120 days, left around like 80 days. And my buddy who bonded me out of jail, he had a trailer on the west side and right across from the county jail. And he had a trailer I could go live in if I renovated it for him. So I was living there, renovating it, and was clean for a couple of weeks maybe. And eventually just being on the side of town, I fell into drugs again. And shortly after that, that's when I ran into my biological family. And
wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And that was actually beginning of this year. So I think around February, March, when I ran into them and was living over there, and kind of had a falling out with my buddy at that time too.
You went to go live with your biological family?
So I went to go live in this trailer on the west side, and then shortly after I met my biological family, I had a falling out with my buddy. I had to leave the trailer, and I contacted my biological mom after meeting her. I was like, hey, like, think I could stay with you maybe? And she was like, yeah. So we started hanging out. She let me stay with her and her boyfriend for about 2 weeks. And she started just giving me pills every day, like at least 25 pills so I could stay well every day. Learn how to cook crack. And, you know, that was basically me and my mom's bonding experience, was smoking pills, and taught me how to cook crack, taught me something, I guess. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we didn't really talk much. And, you know, eventually I do want to reach out and maybe build that connection. But I ended up meeting my biological dad and my biological grandmother too.
Wow.
So after I had to leave my mom's because she was in a trap and the owner didn't want me staying there, I had to leave eventually. I reached out to my dad. He let me come stay with him if I got clean, my biological dad. And, you know.
You met all of them through your mom, like when you initially made that connection?
Same day, actually. Same day I made that connection. My mom calls my grandma up. My grandma calls my dad up. They all come and visit me. And Like it
Wow.
was a lot, and
It
I
must
was
have been a lot for you mentally too. Like, holy shit, I look like this fool. I look
Yeah,
like, you know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
Yeah,
It's crazy.
It was really shocking. Even though I was in my addiction or still using, like it was still shocking. Like this, I think that kind of, I wouldn't even say, I don't know. It was just a lot at that time.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I met my biological dad after the 2 weeks living with my mom. Moved in with my biological dad for about a month or two. He was on Suboxone, so I started using Suboxone to get clean. And I was sober there for like 3 weeks, probably short times every time, but on Suboxone with him. And he got me a job with him. Yeah, and at this point, like I had nowhere to be, so I was kind of desperate just to stay there and please them, so I could stay with him. Ended up going back to fentanyl somehow, and shortly after that, like they were charging me a lot of money. I didn't want to pay all the money to live there, like. So I reached out to my family again. They kind of had enough of my shit, but I reached out and said, "Hey, can I live with my sister, possibly?" And there was a whole ordeal with that, and we had to figure that situation out. But eventually, they'll let me go live with my sister, and I was like, "All right, maybe I can do this right and quit using now." Move in with my sister, help her out with her kids. She just went through her own family thing, and so in my head, I was going to go over there and save everybody and help everybody, but yet I'm still drowning myself. Like, we're both drowning. I can't do anything. and so I go live with her for a little bit, and I think I was clean for the first week there. Ended up starting to use again. I was only there for a month. Near the end of that month, I started just staying out at night because I was using, didn't want to come home all high and fucked up around my nephews. And yeah, I remember when I was using, I would twitch a lot or like dance around and move. And I remember one day I came home like that, and my little nephew like was mimicking that. So like, this is enough of this. Like I'm leaving here. Like, I didn't want to bring that out. My little nephews felt fucking
the
horrible.
Shame and the guilt just started getting to you.
Yeah, dude. Like I still feel really bad about that. Like today, and all I can do is just be the best version of me in the future.
Yeah.
Just, they're so young that they don't understand what it was or anything, which I feel fortunate about. But yeah, then I left, was on the streets again, and was out there just running amok. Got connected with calling my street pops. Dude really helped me out in my life to an extent, but also enabled me. It was horrible to be a person in my life where I was, but he had drugs, so I stayed around him and was out there doing the most, doing some dumb shit, and ended up just wanting to get clean again. So I checked myself. I tried coming back to detox. I was like in and out of detox like 3 times within a month, and just kept going back at it. And then I was like, all right, well, I got to try somewhere different. So I tried going to a different detox. And like I was just over it at this point. Like I'm tired of being on the streets, tired of carrying around this like 50-pound suitcase with no wheels on it. And
so it just sounds like, hearing you kind of and seeing you go through your thoughts and, bringing up these different things that you experience, like I could only imagine, man, like you were exhausted. It's exhausting, not only keeping up the addiction on its own, bro, the amount of effort that it takes to have to make sure you're well all the time, but then also dealing with the stressors of, losing vehicles, getting in trouble with the law, not having a place to stay. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to balance, man.
Definitely was. And I remember like having that exhaustion from all that, and just mental, physical, most importantly for me, spiritual exhaustion. Like I said before, I realized that there was something bigger than myself. I did get connected, and I had no connection to that during these times. I wasn't connected, but I know it was there. Like looking back at it, I know it was always there, or else I wouldn't have been in jail those times that I did. That book wouldn't have came to me. The AA book wouldn't have came to me in jail.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have had those experiences, those things come in my life. And yeah, so in and out of treatment, tried somewhere different to detox. So I went to a different facility to detox for the first time like ever. Just tried somewhere different, and I told them I wanted to come do a different treatment, but they sent me somewhere else. And at that other treatment center, that's when I got involved in AA or NA, because they would take us to meetings every day. So I started going to meetings, and I had a really the biggest difference though this time was I wasn't using any Suboxone. I think I think that was the biggest difference for me. And
Yeah.
coming out of that shortly after detoxing, I remember like just really trying to connect with my higher power and just having these feelings of peace. And like these thoughts weren't even my thoughts, but they were coming from something bigger outside myself, that like, or listening to my thoughts, listening to something speaking to me and actually taking it in. Like I reached the point where at this time where I've tried everything. I've tried mat services, I've tried jail, I've tried praying, I've tried everything, but I haven't tried what I know I should do. Like I always knew what I needed to do to stop, which is just do it basically. And you know, I hear suggestions, and I at this point was like all in, diving the deep end. Like I don't care what's at the bottom. Like I'm just gonna do it. And because these suggestions or my higher power speaks to me through people, places, things. And if I heard a suggestion, that's not them talking, that's my higher power talking. So I started just listening and doing these little things and really connecting with my higher power. And I think that Suboxone, me not being on Suboxone this time or anything at all, really kind of opened my mind up to being able to be receptive to this stuff.
Makes your antennas work better.
Exactly. Yeah. You know? 100%. Yeah.
You know, that's what it reminds me. I always think of Andre 3000 when he was with Outkast. It was a rhyme he had on this song called AT Aliens when he says, "No drugs or alcohol so I can get the signal clear." And he's talking about his higher power.
Hell yeah, exactly.
And then I always think about that, man. Like it's so true. They flood your brain. Like they don't make those signals as clear as they should be.
Yeah.
So how many times did you go into treatment and do that until, like, was it the fourth time that you came in? Like really gave it, 30 some plus days? Is that when you finally?
So I've been to detox probably about like 6 times total, and then treatment for like long term for like 4 times. So yeah, the 4th time when I got sent to somewhere else that wasn't comfortable for me, I was jumping into uncomfortableness and
trying anything.
I was like, all right, maybe I shouldn't be comfortable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't comfortable initially until I remember at the other treatment facility, my first week, I packed my shit. I was like, I'm leaving. I'm tired of this. And somebody talked to me and kind of talked me down. I made the decision to say to myself, all right, I'm going to stay. Fuck it. Like, I'm just going to stay. And I remember after that, like, just feeling calm and feeling comfortable again. And that was pivotal for me, like making that decision, because I knew deep down my higher power speaking to me that like if I leave I'm gonna fuck up. And so when I chose to listen to myself or whatever it is inside me or outside of me and chose to listen to that and not leave, like I knew I shouldn't have, that's when I realized, like, all right, like something's talking to me, something's working in my life. And that's when I started taking suggestions and started listening and doing these things. And yeah, I got involved with the program and did 3 months in that treatment facility. Finished it. First treatment I finished all the way through, really, besides the 30 days. And, getting out of there, the first thing I did was that weekend, like the next day, was the NA convention. And over like 1,500 people there. It was an insane experience. I remember I got fortunate enough to do a reading for the main speaker. So in front of 1,500 people, I did one of the readings in front of them, and just looking up in that room and seeing all these addicts who are no longer using was such a beautiful experience. Like that realization hit me, like seeing this wave of people who been through the same shit, if not worse, but similar stuff as me, and realizing we're all here for the same reason. Like
it was a community.
Yeah, it was awesome. Just all these things were falling into my life, falling into place, that because I'm taking these suggestions, because I'm listening, because I'm doing the things that I know deep down I need to do and not ignoring that, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I don't want to. It's like going to the gym for me now. Like I don't want to wake up and go to the gym, but I know once I'm there and do it, I'll feel great. I know it's something I have to do if I want to get the things I want in my life.
Yeah.
Just all these little things. And
man,
from there, also I went to this sober living house. I've been there for like a month and a half, and about a week ago I was made the house manager. Like
that's fantastic, bro.
I do believe in manifestation, and I think if my antennas, like you said, the antennas, clear those out. Like if they weren't clear, I wouldn't be able to to bring these things into my life. Because I have been praying on stuff, and I was praying for certain things not in the right way, and it came to my life not how I wanted. So but it was also selfish things, and I feel like my higher power has a sense of humor with things like that. He's like,
oh yeah.
So I was praying like I want to get laid, like, it's been a while. I want to get laid, so I was praying on that, and and I'm straight, but I had 3 dudes actively trying to get with me like shortly after that. So I was like, damn, all right, you're funny.
That's pretty funny, man. And how long now? How many months has it been that you've been clean, bro? How long has it been?
It's only been a short time right now, almost at 5 months.
5 months. Good for you, months. Dude.
So, and the progress I'm making right now is way quicker than I imagined it could have been. Like, so if I can stay on this trajectory, I know things will get slow in my life.
Yeah.
And won't be moving as fast. But even like the praying, like I made a prayer before I became house manager. Like, I got this great job that I'm working at. It's right up my alley. It's a holistic animal care shop. So like we sell natural, healthy foods and herbal supplements that the owner created, like to help with cancers or pains and stuff for animals. But learning a lot about plants again there, getting connected with nature. But I got this great job, great living situation, and I was like, all right, stuff's falling into place. Like, what's next? Thinking to myself, like, I need to be doing more. Like, so I made a prayer, like, what's next? And 2 days later, like, I become the house manager, and like, I was becoming complacent where I was at. I was like, I need to do more, which I shouldn't be impatient, but I was getting a little impatient with myself, my progress. And so, yeah, that came into my life with what I believe is my prayers. And just me doing the right thing and other people seeing it is really helping. Like,
that's awesome.
Hearing people say that they're proud of me, and it's a beautiful thing. Like, I haven't heard that really ever much in my life. Like, that people are really happy with what I'm doing, they're proud of me, and that people enjoy my company and presence. Like, it's just such a good feeling not having that for so long, and then reaching out to you again, because I know when you first saw me in this journey, like a year ago or a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, I think, when I first met you, like,
man,
I was like, one day I'm going to be on this podcast, I'm going to talk about this, and here we are today, like, planting those seeds.
Heck
and
yeah.
Got to flourish. And
that's awesome. And I am very proud of you, man. And it's weird because typically when it comes to podcasts, I always get nervous. I always get like nervous, like, hopefully I don't sound like a dumbass or my questions aren't, either the enemy always creeps in. But knowing that you were coming, bro, I felt like this overwhelming sense of peace. Like, it really is like how you said, people looking forward to having you around. I was looking forward to having you here because every time we talked, every time we talked here on the facility was never, it was just so easy and chill. And like, there was even some coincidences and things that we talked about. Like, I think we might be distant family somewhere down the line type of thing.
We gotta figure that out.
We're going to figure that out. But I mean, dude, no, I mean, I genuinely feel that peace radiating off of you. And it is a different feeling. Like, whereas before when you were here, it was like the questioning. I could see that your brain was trying to find like a bug to the light, right? Like, you're trying to find your way out of it. And through every situation, I can see now that picture is more developed in your life. Like, you feel more confident in yourself, and you know what I mean? It's
Definitely.
Cool. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah. Like, I like hearing that, because I have come to that point with myself too. Like, I believe I'm here for a purpose, and I've kind of dissected that and realized what my like broad purpose is. And I believe for me, it's just like when I was 17, first took that acid, I wanted to spread that because I wanted people to feel what I felt, or like open their eyes to what I saw. And trying to force that onto somebody is not the way to do that. I've come to realize, like, at this point now, I realize, like, just doing the next right thing, living, for me, a spiritual life where I'm following, like, it's not even my footsteps, but like something else's path for me, and not veering off as much as I can. Like, it's hard sometimes, like, wanting to take your power and do what you want to do, and not do what you need to do. Like, it's hard, but when I do that, I know that things are going to start coming in my life. I'm going to be able to, I already have been able to influence other people and help them out. And that's the best feeling, just helping other people. I'm sure pretty much everybody wants to help other people. And it's one of the biggest things. And
it's your reason for breathing, man. It gives you purpose. You know what I'm saying? That's awesome, man. And so now, looking at your life now, even with a little bit of time, which I definitely don't want to disregard that, because recovery is so much more than just the date. You know what I mean? It's also the mind and the thought process. And like, I can tell by your thoughts, like you're having healthy thoughts. You're having healthy, you're the way that you're seeing your life now is very healthy. When someone, so that's good. Your trajectory, bro, you're trusting the stream, like you said earlier in the podcast. How has the relationships in your life changed? Like with your I know you said your biological side, you haven't talked to them at all really that much, but how has the relationships changed with your parents that adopted you?
We haven't talked much. I got to see my mom like once since I've been out of treatment. I've been doing stuff but so it's really kind of coincidental, not a coincidence, no coincidences, but today I got to do this podcast, and then we planned about a week ago or 2 weeks ago that we're gonna do a family dinner tonight, so I get to see all my family in one room and eat dinner with them sober for the first time in
that's cool
years. And
that's really, really cool. And it's not a coincidence, man. It's not. And I think for anyone out there who may, and I'm just saying this on a broad spectrum for everyone out there, I think that's one of the biggest lies that the enemy or the devil or whatever says, is like the shame and the guilt, that we feel because of the bridges and shit that we've burnt and the people that we've hurt or whatever. But honestly, man, it's like when you're under these substances, when the substance has taken such a full control of your brain, it's not you in the driver's seat anymore. You know what I mean? It's not. It's something else. And if you notice, whenever that something else was in the driver's seat, you lost vehicles, you lost your freedom, you lost. Little by little, those layers are being ripped from you until eventually there's nothing else there. And in the book that I read, it says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And little by little, bro. I mean, how weird is it that you can take a substance, all of a sudden you feel no pain no more. Those feelings, it's like it almost draws you to it just to take it away. It takes everything away from you, Yeah. So like, it's. I just want people to know that, whatever it is that you've done, the people that you've hurt, like you said, your mom still rides for you, bro. That feeling of trust, which they say is lost in buckets and gained in drips, right? That feeling of trust will come back. And it's a slow process. It's that seed growing. It ain't instantaneous like the drugs were or anything else that we want, But I'm very, very proud of you, dog. And I'm very happy that you're grinding it out, man. And I know that as long as you continue on this road and you keep trusting that stream, the relationship with your mom and your pops is going to get better. Who knows, dog? Who knows? Like, seriously thinking about it, coming from generational curses and knowing that blessing of being able to meet your mom and your father, who knows if you getting your shit together will influence her to get her shit together. You know what I mean?
I thought about that. Yeah. I don't expect it, but it'd be great. And I thought about it, and that's definitely a thing. I did want to talk about what you said right now about you lose everything. Like you don't feel the pain when you're using, but you lose everything. Like, I knew today looking back, I knew my higher power was always there. Like I remember one of my DUIs right before, like it was literally a sign, like a billboard, literally a billboard. It's for some reason this time, after 100 times driving by, this time stood out to me. It was like,
weird,
stop or something, or don't do what you're doing, or something weird like that. And it was like, it hit me. I was like, damn, like, it's almost like, that's weird. It's a weird coincidence in my head at the time.
Yeah.
And, and then I get arrested. And like looking back, it's like, that wasn't a fucking coincidence. That was something trying to speak to me, something trying to push me. But I was so out of my mind that I wasn't able to be receptive and listen to it. And I've had multiple things like that in my life. And, it's just, I just feel really connected with my higher power. And that's something I really am grateful for today. Like without that, I don't think that any of these blessings would be coming in my life the way they are.
Yeah, man.
I feel like sky's the limit for me at this point.
Yeah,
I'm glad I'm doing this while I'm young, at 24.
Oh, dude, you're just crazy. I don't know. I think it's the hair that reminds me of my tios and my dad. He got the long hair, but then the beard too. I keep thinking like we're around the same age and stuff. That's funny. 24, bro.
I'm glad I'm doing it now. I have so much time to. I feel like I've lost so much time already, but I'm trying to make up for it.
Dog, I had my first kid and got married at your age, and I've been married for 12 years now, dog. Like that's like it really is. You are super. Like trust me. When you're growing up, you hear like OGs or people say some shit, and you're like, bro, whatever. Like this fool don't. You just kind of take them as like an old man, bro. But as you get older, you start learning like they knew what they were talking about. Yeah. You take anything from what I say, no. you are just a baby, dog. Like the fact that you got your stuff together, don't ever feel that shame. Don't ever feel that guilt, bro. You have no business ever letting those thoughts come into your head. The whole world is at your fingertips still, bro. For real. That's really cool, man. That's so cool. And then even too, like the coincidence is the fact that Brianna is your therapist, like the most sweetest, kindest spirit. You know what I mean?
Spirit, yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. Like just seeing, I can tell that she really genuinely cares and loves her clients and everyone that she works with. And, you know, and I will be praying for you too, dog. I'm gonna be praying that, you know, you continue, your trajectory continues to go in that positive light, and that you continue to keep building on that relationship with your family, and even with your, you know, with your biological family stuff. And, you know, just please, man, just be aware on how the enemy works, man. You know, sometimes God makes things a little bit tougher before they get better. And that's when he's the loudest. The enemy is when you feel insecure, when you feel that shame, when you feel that guilt. You know, that never comes from a positive energy. That never comes from God. Like, you know, that's coming from something else. So just be aware of how he works, dog. You know?
Very mischievous.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like we all are when we're in the middle of the bullshit, you know? So what advice, man, like could you say, or is there advice that you could give somebody, maybe somebody who was in that same position as you know, adopted, maybe feeling like they're alone, not feeling welcomed, or not feeling like somebody loves them, or whatever those feelings are that you felt inside of your heart? Is there advice that you can give somebody was just where you were a few months ago?
You know, that's a hard question. I feel like, you know, the best thing I can say is just, for me, what works for me the best, just being myself, not trying to find that external validation. Because when I'm myself, people genuinely like that. Like, people like me being goofy as hell. Yeah, it might be embarrassing to go out with sometimes, but, you know, that's what makes me me. And, you know, you don't see that in everybody. People are trying to be somebody else. They're not. They're trying to copy what you see, like, social media or movies. And I think for me, just being myself. And another huge thing for me is just that connection to my higher power. Like, you know, I do want to say something that I think I heard once, that, you know, my God has an ego. He created telescopes and microscopes to admire itself, you know. So I love hearing that. And
that's funny.
You know, it kind of if you think about that, it puts my higher power in perspective a little bit, like, I guess. But, you know, yeah, I guess just be yourself and just do it. Do the uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable eventually becomes comfortable, and that's when you can grow in your uncomfortable spots.
All right.
You know? But I do want to say also that I would love to do this again with you in like a year from now, or a couple of years from now. See where I'm at then, you know.
I would love it, man. And I just really want to thank you, man, for coming, because it makes me happy to know that you're leaving and you're in a good spot. Thank you for that, bro. You know, I don't get an opportunity to really talk about that shit a lot, but, you know, even we all struggle. Doesn't matter where we are, doesn't matter who we are or what our positions are. Like, we all struggle with something, man. And this just really made my heart feel happy. So thank you, dog.
Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, man, get up out your seats and join me in giving my buddy Rudy a huge round of applause for coming down. I appreciate you being so transparent and open and honest, man. And just we'll be praying for you. All the listeners, pray for my boy Rudy too. Make sure, you know, we got to work together. Community is what it's all about. For everyone out there who's listening, please, man, first of all, thank you guys for the support, and please be sure to share this with a friend or a loved one, maybe somebody who needs recovery, somebody in their active addiction, or somebody, you know, AA, NA, whatever it may be, man. We have to help each other. That's what our job is here, is to be a community and to help others live better lives. And, you know, I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in on a weekly basis. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will definitely see you on the next one. Much love. God bless, and have a good rest of your week. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the Arcast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody in need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the Arcast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.